Chad, he's Matt. We're reviewing Totally Rad on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Let's get into it. Matthew, we're going to kick you off first with graphics. Give me your lowdown on how you felt about this game's graphics.
Um, it's kind of a mixed bag. Like there's some effects that go on in here that look really nice, especially with the backgrounds and how the side scrolling, all the stuff you see there. But the color palette kind of throws me off. It feels like a little too cumbersome at times. The characters and enemy designs, they're relatively simplistic, nothing special. So I would probably say no more than maybe a 3.
I am going to go a bit higher. I liked the design of the main character. I like that he has this dumb, stupid, over elongated walk. I thought that's adorable. The
Mm.
backgrounds were some of the best that I've seen in some time. And I think all villains on the Nintendo look stupid and plain, so I'm not going to dock that. I'm going to give it a 4. Matt, what about sound?
Um, that's a I don't know. It's not like generic or anything. It's pretty good soundtrack. It's like anything else that doesn't have a certain amount of like memorable tracks on it. You're not going to find any like bangers here or anything, but it's solid enough, and the sound design is adequate for what it needs to be. It's very much like dude bro 90s music you would expect for this kind of game. So I would say uh, I honestly liked it to a degree, so I might go with a 4 on this one.
I agree, it's a 4. There is no singular banger, but the entire track compilation makes it a very nice vibe. It sets the mood. It definitely taps in that late 80s, early 90s type of cool dude bro genre. So definitely enjoyed it. Definitely a 4. Matt, let's get to the gameplay. What do you think of it? Score that up.
Yeah, this is very much a Mega Man clone in every respect, and even like straight up to the slowdown that takes place in some aspects of this game. And I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And I think, like I said, the slowdown's a big aspect of that. Because gameplay wise, it's solid. It plays fine. It's relatively simplistic. It's not like, too complicated to understand or anything. But it's fairly average as well. It's not as polished as like Mega Man could be. So I think I'm gonna stick with a 3.
I'm going to give it a 3 as well. It's definitely a game that I think has promise and potential, and it's definitely not broken. I didn't find anything in this game that I thought was truly terrible or bad, and it does play. It's a game that does kind of fail to be in its own kind of, I guess, format, if you will, or something along the lines of embracing its own originality, which it does not. It's a Mega Man clone down to the design of some of the enemies. So 3, but it's still an enjoyable run. Fun factor, Matt.
Um, I had some fun with this. I wish it wasn't such a clone, like there's nothing about this that makes me go, man, I want to play Totally Rad right now. Literally, like we said, you can pop in Mega Man and get the same effect out of this game. You just get a different aesthetic. That's the only real difference here. I would have to say it's not nearly as tough, which does make it a little more enjoyable, but I would say probably no more than hmm, which is tough. I'm thinking between 3 or 4. I think I'm gonna stick with the 3 though.
I'm gonna give it a 4, mostly because I love this dumb, stupid surfer bro culture of the '90s and '80s. So any game that embraces that, I'm definitely 100% down for. The dialogue is just the worst, and it made it so much better. It's just a game that captures an era so effortlessly. And while it may be a hardcore Mega Man clone, the fact that it is easier than Mega Man and doesn't bog you down with stupid robots as the plot point definitely makes this something that I think stands out on its own. Finally, Matt, challenge. How was it to beat? Did you enjoy the challenge, or was it a game that you had to slog through to the point where you just gave up?
I think mechanically, from that standpoint, it makes some parts of this a little more challenging. primarily due to a little bit of cumbersome level design and how you navigate. Um, that's primarily what made it hard for me, and some of the deaths and things like that could be cheap, but it's not too difficult to complete, and it is fairly rewarding when you actually do beat a boss, and they're not that hard to get through. So I would have to say, God, I'm like sticking with average here because to me it's pretty much the average across the board. Maybe a little higher, maybe a 4. I want to be fair. I'll give it a 4.
Well, I too will give it a 4. It was not a game that I had problems playing. It was not a game that I had problems beating, but it wasn't also a game that I felt was cheap in its design. I thought it was balanced. I just thought that largely, if the game has any faults, it's that it's not wholly original in its gameplay, but and the music could have been a smidge better. But I genuinely thought this was a very fun little game, and it's one that often isn't talked about. So I think it definitely deserves the grade it got. So that'll give you an 18 out of 25 for a 72%. So this game is highly recommendable. It's just not something that I think you'll ever truly go out of your way to play a second time unless you really love the aesthetic, the vibe, and the overall story, which is pretty bonkers. But that's all we got for this week. We're going to record a podcast, and it's going to be down below if you're listening to it on YouTube. Otherwise, we'll talk to you guys next week. Matt, take us home.
Good night, everybody. See you.